Oh. You're going through yours? Did not realize, I'm sorry. How is that your? You're right through here. Here.
I think we can,
Yeah,
do we have quorum?
probably not.
I actually think we might.
Oh, because Michael's coming in like 5 minutes.
Michael's
right?
gonna be here in a minute.
It's 11 right now.
Traffic was nice. Yeah, I took
They
a
wanna-
lift. I was gonna walk over and then I was just kind of running late and I was like, oh, I'll just take a quick lift. It was, I mean. I would have taken, I mean, it's some of it's
Just the weather,
it's January, not December. You know, like that,
so you don't want to read too much into it.
yeah, but that was the quickest I've ever
I
got
just got an email
from
from.
my place to Penn Station without using the bike. Like I would normally ride a bike, even if it was
But
this
that's for
cold,
next
just
year.
because of
Yeah.
time.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
already.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear.
Getting longer.
No,
Okay.
that's for.
I was worried that
That's for the
the
March
toll
3rd,
wasn't high
He
enough
asked
to
for
really
February.
prevent
which
you
is
know,
March 3rd. That's
the
what he meant.
traffic.
I think it is. I mean,
Okay, okay.
the thing I was laughing at
Um,
is seeing people on.
All right, can
online.
everybody hear me?
Oh.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Great. Hello and welcome to the January 6th, 2025 Parks and Public Spaces Committee meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5. We are just waiting for just a second to see if we can grab a few more people to reach quorum, but we will begin momentarily. Thank you.
I get a piece of blank paper.
From the printer, do you want lined paper?
If you don't want ripping it out.
No, I mean, you can use the notebook if
Okay.
you like.
Then I'll rip it out. When I'm done, you can have the notebook.
Marisa, this might be a good time to make the announcement or to plug the sanitation department's call for applications for emergency snow shovel. I certainly noticed some parks this morning that, and by the afternoon when the snow stopped falling, that really needed a little bit of extra attention on the sidewalk, so. Submit your application. Go in person.
Love it.
Information is in our newsletter. Right, I think that, because where are we at in this attendance sheet? Hasn't partially.
I bumped into Nick yesterday. On my tour, because he lives right around the Flatiron Building. Bumped into him for a second, seemed happy.
With all this copious free time.
Present, we've got Isabel. Virtual, absent. Present. Present. Present, present. Virtually.
It's 2025, folks.
Miriam is no longer on.
Yeah, so I'm counting her as out, but is BJ in this call? I can't. I'm
Not yet, no.
Okay. And then present. All right, if everyone wants to go around, starting with people in the room first and introduce ourselves and then introduce folks online. I think that we can probably get started so that we can get our updates and get ourselves out of here.
Great.
All right, so I am Libby Hutton. I am the interim chair of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee.
Hi, I'm Ronald Vikram, member of Parks and Public Spaces Committee.
Oh, hi, my name is Tom Ricardo. I'm a member of the Parks Committee.
Annie Rowland, a member of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee.
I'm Michael K. Back. And Hi,
Oh, thank you. Yes.
I wouldn't be here if I wasn't a member of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee.
All right, well, folks online,
Catherine
In-
Ellington, CB5 Parks here.
Todd
Isabel Marks.
Shapiro, CB5 Parks, longtime member here.
Isabel Marks, member of CB5 Parks and Public Spaces.
John Harris, Parks and Public Spaces.
I believe that we have an update. So first, the agenda, I will open this up for a quick update from Parks, very briefly. Paul, are you with us? Paul, right? Teresa?
Yeah, hang on.
Well,
There he is. Yeah, there we go.
he's muted and his light is off.
There's the panelists.
Paul, you should be able to unmute yourself. Maybe later.
Okay. That is unexpected, but back to our regularly scheduled agenda. We have a fairly light agenda today. So just as a refresher, we have an application from the Madison Square Park group, and Isabel will lead us off on that.
He's
Oh.
Got his thing going.
Did he, Paul, are you there?
His camera's on.
Can you hear us?
Here, I'm gonna
Do you wanna?
unmute you. Paul, you're unmuted.
It's a problem on his computer.
Okay.
It's a problem.
So we're gonna move forward with our agenda just to keep things going. We have a presentation from Madison Square Park on an application, and Isabel Marks will be introducing that application. It is for a Lego event.
Yes, yes, exactly. So the Madison Square Park Conservancy is here to present an activation application for the end of January. This is a promotional product launch for Lego Botanicals. There's going to be a gallery instead of a truck in the Western Gravel, focused on flowers, and attendees will get to explore this gallery, assemble their own Lego daffodils. There won't really be any amplified sound, and this is going to be on the Western Gravel. We have Michaela Birmingham here with us today, and I'll let her explain the rest.
Everyone, thanks for having me. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just in transit right now, so forgive my less than glamorous Zoom background. I do have a couple images if I have permission to share my screen. Is that something doable or?
I think that you should, yes.
Okay. Let me see if it will work. Oh, let's see.
There you go.
Can you see
and-
that? Okay, great.
And just a reminder, if you could describe the visual images, so that those who are visually impaired, also know what we're looking at, that would be great.
Sure thing. So right now I just have a slide up with the Madison Square Park Conservancy logo in green, white, and black. I'll introduce myself. I handle all the marketing activations and film productions that happen in Madison Square Park. For anyone who's not familiar, the Madison Square Park Conservancy is a nonprofit that is empowered to operate and program 100% of the activities, care, and maintenance that happen in the wonderful park, 6.3 acres. So everything we do there is going right back into the care and programming of the park. And one of the ways that we do that is by allowing a limited number of activations to happen per year. The Conservancy, as I'm sure most of you know, has a license agreement with the City of New York that permits 4 activations per year. And we have a very high standard of, what we would like to invite into the park. We want to make sure that these things are things that the public can enjoy, that they're free and accessible. So I'm going to take you through one that's coming up this end of January, early February, which is actually kind of nice because a lot of times we end up with a lot happening in the fall or late summer months. And to have one sort of in a time where there's not a lot of action is really nice to think about activating the park. So let me go to the next slide here. The next slide just has my name and the title, and basically what I just said, that we have 4 marketing activations per year. These activations are a significant portion of the Conservancy's budget every year. I should also mention that. So upcoming January 31st to February 2nd is a new launch from Lego. Any Lego aficionados out there may know that every January, Lego comes out with their new collections. This is sort of loosely a Valentine themed activation that will emphasize and inspire, this is their goal, around the idea of historical significance of flowers around gratitude and love. So it's not a like super in your face Valentine's Day thing, but it's sort of highlighting a lot of the history, a lot of the background in terms of education around different botanicals, and showcasing these pretty cool sets. And so it's kind of a nice tie-in with the park that, as you know, has an extensive botanical collection that we are very proud of. And so I'll just show you the location. Again, as was mentioned, it's going to happen on the West Gravel towards 23rd Street. This is the spot that we typically use for activations. The gravel is very resilient. Nothing will be happening on any of the lawns that would be more delicate for traffic. The gravel is quite robust in that sense. And I will show you a quick image here. This is not the exact design, but this is sort of similar to what they've done in the past. It will be along these lines where there'll be a flower truck type vehicle, let's call it, with flowers and access for the public to go in. And again, I should remind everyone that this is free. The images right now are 3 different trucks with floral decor around them, inviting the public to come up, and you can visit different stations within the activation and receive free pieces of Lego that, when put together, will create a daffodil, which again is a nice tie into Madison Square Park, as we have a significant number of daffodils planted as a memorial to 9/11 in the city. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to put this on your radar. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any about the details of this activation.
All right, Isabel, I will let you lead the way.
Yeah, of course. So far, this looks great. Just for questions, you said on the application you're expecting about 700 people. Are you prepared for sort of any overflow, and how is that kind of reflected in the amount of materials that you have for this activation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's free stuff is always popular. It's going to be February, so it's maybe a little less. But we always plan for, if we think it'll be about 700, they'll be stocked for 1,000 just to, be sure. And the good thing is that the Lego store is actually within walking distance of the site. So if there was ever a need to restock, the team will be able to just run over there and, get additional materials if necessary.
All right, are there any other questions from anyone on the committee for the presenter? Michael?
Are there like new drops happening at this location?
No, the Lego Botanical Collection has already dropped, so to speak. So it's out in the world. You can buy it. It's actually very, very cool. All sizes, from like small individual orchids to like large, really super complicated sets. One of the things that they're doing with this is also just to sort of remind everyone that Lego is for all ages. So it's not just for children, but it's for many adults who enjoy it and others who, like this floral spin.
Any other questions from anyone? Michael, yeah.
Could you go back to your map, please? to show
Sure.
us where the. Michaela, while you're getting that map up, how long have you
Yep.
been with the park, Madison Square Park?
I have been with the Park Conservancy for about a year. I also did work for several years for the Parks Department. So I have experience with the city, and then I've also worked in park nonprofits for about 10 years. So have a great love of the park advocacy world and appreciation over the past year of how hard the Conservancy has to work. Everyone sees the park and thinks, oh, wow, it's doing great. But every single dollar is, has to get raised through things like this in order to keep it looking so great. So it's been a really fun job.
So having worked for
Here's the map. Yep. Yep.
just 1 year was the answer I was looking for. Thanks for that,
Yeah.
the rest of that stuff though. So let me ask you a question. You've been there for a year, you
Mhm.
spent some time in the park, and you're looking at this map, you see anything wrong with it? Do you know who Roscoe
Not-
Conklin is? Michaela?
Roscoe,
Did I say your name right, Michaela? Do you know who Roscoe?
Michaela.
You know
He's a historical figure. I'm not sure his whole full
He was a
backstory though.
senator. He was a senator
Yep.
from New York State to Washington, D.C. And there happens to be a statue of him in the park, and it's nowhere
Yep.
near where you got that line says Roscoe Conklin.
Well, this is the name of the lawn, not the statue. These are the names that these particular lawns are named, just so we can differentiate between them.
All right, thank you, Michael. If we could keep our questions to the application at hand and comments, that would be great. Do you have a follow-up?
So you say this is the first event you're allowed for? This is the first event that you have so far. Great, congratulations on booking something so early and from such a convenient neighbor. Have you any idea if you'll fulfill the other three? Anything on the menu going forward?
Well, we did fulfill our 4 for 2024, so we are optimistic that we will fill all the slots. We do get a fair amount of requests, and like I said earlier, we just want to make sure that we're inviting in the best ones that are best fit. Not every request we get, we entertain, because some things are certainly, like I'll get requests for diarrhea medication. They want to put a toilet in Madison Square Park. I don't think any of us really want to see that happen. So we are optimistic.
Excuse me. So what you're saying
Yes.
is you just have the one so far?
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, please wait to be recognized by the chair.
sorry.
But Tom, go.
Is it gonna, you showed it in the Western Gavel, is there a back tour, is it a walkthrough exhibit? And I'm sorry if you said that before.
There'll be some benches and other sort of seating that they'll be adding in combination. Sometimes they like to use the existing plaza chairs that we have. We make those available if they would like. But there will be seating areas. It will be completely ADA accessible. And it'll be, it's not going to be walled off, so people can walk through from whatever side they may be entering the park.
No, I was just wondering if there was like a front or a back, or is it could, just because the way it's lined, it's kind of, the flow kind of comes back through, like, a lot of times the things line up towards 23rd Street, even though most people are gonna kind of in the park, kind of from the either Broadway or down south. Like the last thing I saw was there was an installation for like Christmas time or around Thanksgiving, I can't remember what it was. And it was just, the back was weird to it, and I was just curious how it was gonna open. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably and like, as I say, I don't have the final, exact picture to share with you, but they do sort of take an eye to the 360 approach so that there is no sort of back. They do, they need some sort of storage or back of house area that they always aim to try and keep as minimal as possible.
Okay, if there are no additional questions from committee members in the room, I will take questions from online in the order. In the order of raised hands. I will first call on Charles.
Thank you, Chair. I'm so sorry. I was having an issue with my audio at one point of the presentation. Could I please hear the dates and the times of the event? Thank you.
So it's going to be live from January 31st to February 2nd. And it will be located in the western gravel of Madison Square Park. 9 to 5 roughly will be the hours of operation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd.
Hi, so, I was just looking at the questionnaire. So the signage, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the signage is just what we saw. It's just looks what was showed on those trucks, right? So it's relatively modest, just small signs that are on the trucks that say Lego. Is that it? There's no overwhelming placards or
No.
anything of that type? So it's just.
No, that
Can you bring up that picture again? You know, I had some trouble seeing it.
I can certainly bring up the picture. I just want to emphasize that this is not the final. These are inspiration photos of examples of this flower truck concept that's been used in other places. Lego is doing this all over the country in a few select cities. But yes, there are a few small Lego logos on the side, and they are quite demure, as they say. Nothing massive will be here.
Okay, so just small signs, no amplified sound, as I think I see. There's nobody taking pictures or recording digital media for something like this that I can see. Is that the case? Or are they encouraging people to have Lego staff take pictures of people interacting with the things? And then the other question I have is Lego, to me, I'm just trying to get my head around this. Lego is the thing that you build with the little pieces that I used to use when I was a kid. So how does that tie out? You're building Lego flowers that correspond to real flowers? Is that what it is? And they're giving away like Lego kits?
These are an example of the kits. Can you see this image? These are just some of the botanical collection. They're actually Lego bricks, but they are in the shape of petals.
Oh, we can't actually see your screen.
Oh, sorry.
You want to share for
So they're
once.
Lego flowers. They're like kits where you make Lego flowers. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And everybody who shows up gets a kit. Oh, yeah. Okay. So there it is.
No, they're not getting a kit. They're getting 6 individual pieces to make one flower.
Well, I see. So so all the kids and the parents who show up will get one of these, and it's just the exposure. There's no interactive digital media where Lego is going to be taking pictures of people that would require releases. And then the last thing is, are you at liberty? I always ask this question. Are you at liberty to expose, how much you're getting from this? Is it as a percentage of your budget? Is it as a dollar amount? Or it's just a substantial sum consistent with what the Conservancy has gotten in the past?
Yes, I'm not at liberty to share the exact amount, but it is consistent with what has been received by the Conservancy in the past. Regarding your question about taking photos, they have not requested any media that would trigger a film and TV permit. With all of these things, people do take photos of themselves interacting with the backdrops. That is part of sort of why people do activations like this. but they have not planned any large scale media capture.
I see. So I would say, first of all, welcome to your new position. I would say that based on the many activations we've seen, if what you're showing here is consistent with the pictures and what actually gets placed in the park, it's of a scale and tastefulness, and the signage, assuming it's small, is very well within the boundaries of, you know, what we've seen before. You've answered all my questions. Thank you.
Great.
All right, I will now open up the floor for any questions, any commentary from the committee. Then I will open up to any public comments about this activation, and then I will put the committee into business session. Are there any comments about this from the committee members in the room first? Michael Kavak.
Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward. I don't think there should be much problem in us approving this. That's my comment.
All right, any comments from anyone in the room? Comments from anyone online?
Yeah, I agree with Michael.
Charles, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I went to an event once in Chicago where they had a Lego event like this, where it was showing all famous paintings, but all made out of Lego. So I think this event will be very popular. I think it's a very clever idea, and I think it will bring a good amount of interest.
Great, thank you. I will open this up, seeing no additional comments from members of the committee. I will open this up for comments from members of the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Please use that power by raising your hand and waiting to be recognized by the chair. All right, seeing no comments from the public, I will now put the committee into business session to discuss this application. How is the committee feeling about this Lego activation? First of four.
It's pretty straightforward. I would be feeling better with some feedback.
5 pieces.
I don't think I'm allowed to say that.
No.
Does anyone online have any opinions they would like to add to this conversation? How's everybody feeling about it? Feeling pretty good? Do we want to?
Yeah, let's
Yes.
just.
Do I have a motion?
Right here.
Seconded.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Michael, will you lead us through the vote? Have it open.
I do, I've got it, okay. John,
Yes.
Miriam.
No longer on the committee.
No longer.
Oh, you spoke to her?
No longer on the committee.
Catherine, I thought she said she'd be away.
Kevin's here.
Catherine is present virtually.
Okay.
Yes.
Kath-
Yes.
Laura's not here. Libby,
Yes.
cool. Michael,
Yes.
Isabel,
Yes.
and this is Charles,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Shapiro, Me.
Yes.
Yeah. BJ is not with us. Arnold,
Yes.
cool. Think it carries.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Do we have?
Thanks,
Paul.
Marcella.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Thank you, Marcella, Michaela, for welcome to CB5. Thank you for kicking off our year with a lovely activation. I'm excited to see how it blooms.
And check out that
Oh.
stat. Michaela,
I
check
will.
out that. Yes.
I will. I'll see you on the lawn over there, and I hope everyone can come out and get their free Lego kit. Thank you for having me, everyone.
James and
Awesome.
Michael
Thanks
will
so
be
much.
there.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Paul, do we have you? Our next agenda item.
Sorry. Microphone icon does not.
All right. Sorry, everyone. The microphone icon does not allow me to
Can you
unmute.
do it?
I can read it. The report to mention the conclusion of the holiday market at Union Square and the return to routine session maintenance. which should include snow removal, de-icing, and freezing prevention. Among those other routine tasks are the patrols of parks enforcement, which continue to control unruly vendors and addressing homeless encampment conditions. These have not been problematic in District 5 other than incidental debris drops. PEP Manhattan South has issued 41 parking tickets and 12 other violations, including 2 violations for illegal vending in Madison Square Park in the last week, ending January 4th. The agency is currently accepting special event permit applications from the general public via the park's website. I did have a question for you, Paul. Do you mind if
So who's, tell us what's going on.
Marisa, do you want to give us like Paul's full title?
I'm sorry, I don't know his full title, but he's representative from the Parks Department.
And he's here to do what?
Just to give an update on the park.
So we can't hear him, we can only,
He's having some audio troubles. I emailed him to see what was going on, but he's having some audio trouble. So I suggested that he put his update in the chat.
In the
oh,
chat.
that's what it is. Can you start at the beginning and read it again, so I understand
I
what
think
it's all about?
we can maybe do, is that okay if we do that offline? And we can recover. It's about,
How about we have him back?
it's a full report. I think our agenda is really full, so I think that if we can ask a couple of questions, but we can also invite him back to discuss things in a little bit more depth. We're also going to hear from, I've got some updates on that of additional, our next 2 meetings are also going to be full, but I'm trying to help us save some of that for the future. I did have a question for you, Paul, about the snow removal today in Union Square, specifically in the Triangle Park. It was about 4 o'clock and the snow and ice really hadn't even been touched on that sidewalk. And I was just wondering sort of what the process is. Paul is saying his title is Administrative Park and Recreation Manager. Thank you.
He's from the Department of Parks.
It's the Administrative Park and Recreation Manager.
Untouched snow in Manhattan, that sounds beautiful.
You can also call in.
Yeah, that might also be a better way to do it.
Put them on speakerphone next to the mic.
Yeah,
Paul, do you think that's something that you might be able to do?
maybe you went to the bathroom.
I think he's probably addressing that. But again, I will also plug the our recent newsletter about signing up and applying for a position as an emergency snow removal person. You've got to show up with multiple forms of ID to the Department of Sanitation. But you can apply.
I read that message.
Can contribute directly to our parks. Here we go. They're gonna get to de-icing this evening. There is a night crew that should be spreading salt. Okay. I guess I just have some additional questions about sort of the timeline for when the parks get.
I think, Libby, this is Catherine.
Yes, Catherine.
Yeah, I think it's a few hours after the last snowfall that cleanup is required. There's at least, I think, a couple of hours. I want to say 4 hours, but maybe not 4. But there are a couple of hours that they have after the last snowfall to clean up.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some days when we expect a greater snowfall that some of the crews get out in advance of it. But I was curious about that. Myrna, do you want to field your question or ask your question that Paul can then type and field?
Right. So my question is about the holiday markets and the 2 fire events we had.
Oh, I got a follow-up on that. We're gonna have a presentation from that.
Okay.
From Urban Space, but you can also, I'm very curious what Paul has to say, but that's an update that is going to be happening in our next meeting. We will also be hearing about that. So please, announcement now, please bring all of your questions. And Bryant Park and 34th Street are also gonna be here to ask that. So that will be addressed. It has not gone unnoticed.
Okay.
But also, Paul, do you have any comments on that as well? And you are also invited to come to that meeting and also present and be part of that conversation if you would like.
That was my brainstorming topic.
You think he's still here?
I think he is, and I think he is probably typing.
Even on the plane.
No, he's just having trouble unmuting his.
It's the microphone with
Because he
like
was
the,
on camera.
it's
before.
like the permission of the,
Yeah.
of that. Yes, he's answering the snowfall question. Thank you, Catherine. It is true that light snowfalls are in some measure more unpredictable than heavy snowfalls. Okay, and yes, we mean the Bryant Park fire and the 34th Street fire that happened about 2 weeks in advance
Herald
of that.
Square, yeah.
The Herald Square, with that brand new holiday market that we had, I think, seen an application
Yeah.
for.
Mhm.
In front of Macy's, that one? Or there
Yeah.
There were two fires.
There were two, and they were both from sort of like the same management, so that's why it's gonna be like a very, the thought is of having there be sort of a longer thing to make sure it's flagged for the following year, so that when we do like a full review, that we see it like with enough time.
A longer thing.
Like a lot,
longer
the
it's
next
like-
meeting is not gonna be the only time that we discuss this. We wanna make sure that like we take
There's a thorough
safety
investigation.
very seriously, and as far as like making sure that we're not approving things where anybody in our district would get
Also,
hurt.
any results of an investigation should be made
Yeah, but that,
to us.
yeah, to the extent, we find out more of what happened, and then also like for the future, like changes, that we also really like look at that the next time, like in the summer, we can have Christmas in July. But that's like one of the agenda things for
Makes sense,
for the future.
okay.
That's not sort of a policy concept, which I
Great.
hope we will get to in a moment though. Just an update on that. But Paul, we would also love to have you back in general, perhaps when there are fewer technical difficulties as well. Give it another moment about the fire. But yeah, definitely bring questions. We can offline a little bit more about that for the
Okay.
minutes, because
Were people hurt?
Nobody was hurt.
Nobody was
Neither
hurt.
one of them.
All right, Paul says that he plans to attend the meeting, and normally they receive pages about incidents such as these, but they did not issue pages, and so there was not a real-time response by his maintenance and operations staff, and so he doesn't have any additional information. Great, really looking forward to attending the meeting at the end of January. I believe it's January 27th.
Okay.
So same bat time, same bat channel for that. Does anyone else have any additional questions for Paul? But we might be able to field some of those at the next meeting as well, when our tech is a little bit better. Okay, so moving on to, yes.
So I just wanted to report that I personally went and I inspected both of those fire results the following day after the fires. And I was amazed after seeing the pictures that people took. I wasn't there for the fire. Thank you very much. That nobody was hurt. Because there was, I counted about 2,400,000 people around that fire in Bryant Park, and how nobody got hurt. And the tent didn't even get burnt, because it was right up against the tent where the ice skating shoes are given out. Just amazing. And the other one right in front of Macy's, forget about it. Nobody hurt. Very fortunate, very
Yeah,
fortunate.
it definitely brings up some questions about like crowd control and the number of people who are usually in that space, which is something for us to consider as we like move forward. But definitely bring additional questions for our next meeting. But with that, I wanted to open the floor for our sort of like issues, comments, concerns, and sort of like general direction of the committee for the next year. And sort of like, are there things that are close to people's hearts that we would like for the committee to discuss? I have sort of a working list. Sort of my plan for tonight to discuss these is to sort of generate some of these ideas, see how much interest there is, what direction we maybe want to go, and then follow up a little bit more, and then circle back with some of that at our March meeting, and have people who are very interested kind of team up to discuss it. But this is sort of the initial ideation phase of direction of the committee, what we want to see in our public spaces, and what issues we want to take up. So yeah, to open, Todd, I will take your comment about this if you have a specific.
Unmute.
Todd,
You.
you are recognized.
Okay, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, first of all, Libby and Michael, thank you so much for making a real effort to open up discussion on what our committee should be thinking about going forward. There's certainly no lack of important parks-related issues that we need to concern ourselves with. As we all know, the congestion pricing has gone into effect. Hopefully, that's going to lead to a lot less traffic on a lot of our thoroughfares in the main areas. My contribution to this, and this is something that I've been discussing with our colleague Zool, okay? We all know, or we should know, about the Broadway Linear Park project and all of the issues related to that. There are many of our major thoroughfares that are under consideration by the city to be turned into parks and outdoor spaces that hopefully over time will be more than concrete slabs and parking islands, traffic islands as they have traditionally been. If you think about the public plazas from 23rd to 25th Street in front of the Flatiron Building, I mean, for years they've been talking about changing that and incorporating green technology and making it less concrete and something that's more attuned to growth and nature and trees. So we know this is coming. So in speaking with Zool, this is something that would cut across multiple committees, right? And I think a task force is something that would be with Parks and Public Spaces and some of the other committees. I think all of us should be thinking about educating ourselves in this and maybe getting involved in the task force. I certainly will. And there's a lot of research and information that's already out there in the public realm. And I can't think of anything that's more important for our parks, or, you know, how our parks are going to be designed and represent to the public in terms of sustainability and new approaches. And it would be great if we could weigh in on this and be proactive and really reflect what our neighborhood wants.
All right, thank you, Todd. So to summarize some of what you just said and kind of like break it down like organizationally, those are two of the items that I had brainstormed myself for what to plug. So as some of you may have been aware, the Transportation and Environment Committee has talked about the Broadway Linear Park. And one of our very own CB5 members, Zool, and also Christopher, have taken this up as an ongoing project. And that has now been shifted into a, like the concept is for a task force. So some of that is about looking at turning all of Broadway into a long park, an elevated bike path. It is a longer and ongoing thing. I definitely encourage everybody to get involved. I think it's super interesting. It's a great space to like ideate, if nothing else, and spin off other ideas for how we can incorporate some of that stuff in a shorter time frame. So definitely a big plug for that. And we can connect and offline and get involved with that. And the second thing that I'm hearing Todd say is something that I had a question that I wanted to pose to the committee, which is a little bit of overlap with T&E as far as when some of these like open streets become sort of like open streets. That's definitely a transportation issue with traffic flow. But once they become open streets, it is a public plaza, and that really falls under our jurisdiction. And within some of that, I'm curious about whether or not we might start like a little bit of outreach to kind of see how some of those open streets, you have to have a sponsor. And so some of them are bids and some of them are like a literal block association. And I wondered if we might sort of reach out to some of them and kind of see how it's going. A lot of the stuff started in the pandemic, and as far as like resources, or is it being kept up, and are there different ways it could be incorporated to like better activate that space? Are there events that are happening? Are there music performances? Do they need more volunteers to plant things? Do they need us to get them a street tree? Like how's it going? So I wondered about that sort of like reaching out process, but also the plaza piece of it. Like once it becomes an open street, like that's my thought is that it falls within the open space. Michael?
No, I just have a comment that T&E is completely abdicated his responsibility and canceled this meeting this month, so. As far as I'm concerned, we can do whatever we want. There's no transportation and environment committee. Like, so, yeah, I'm game for whatever.
This is more of an ongoing process for sort of the whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah, your comment is noted.
When they become open streets, what department controls it for the city? Is it city of, like, when it becomes like a plaza, is it still Department of Transportation, or do they hand that over, like, where Broadway is like blocked off, does that then become like a public plaza and then Parks take care of it?
Parks doesn't take care of that. It runs through DOT. So this is more of a, like, frequently on our board, sometimes the agency that you work with the city is sort of like how some of the responsibilities get split up. But as far as sort of like the ideas, like ideologically of what that sort of like domain is for that committee, it seems to be a little bit more of a more like a neater fit. But yeah, no, but sometimes
the way you were saying it, I was just kind of curious from what you said.
Yeah, so it's also sort of like for a street fair, you have to get like a SAFO permit. So in September, we heard an item from Union Square Partnership on behalf of an applicant doing an activation that we then did not have enough information because of a non-disclosure agreement. We were unable to then take a position. But in order to get the SAFO permit, they wanted to have a letter from the community board and a resolution stating that we supported it. So that's like a DOT type of thing. So yeah, so that is something, but I'm hearing that is something that how do we feel about that?
And you're not speaking to the proposals, you're speaking to those that are existing, or?
So the proposal piece of it, I think, is more of a question that, like, to talk with like the rest of the community board about a little bit like in more depth.
Right.
But definitely I'm thinking about the ones that sort of are already existing and the public realm element of like those spaces that are active.
And what their needs are.
Like the holiday market in Herald Square, like that's very clearly like our realm.
Would the city have like a listing of all of them with contact information that we can just like broadly reach out to for a touch base?
I think that we can go through that too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was half, am I recognized, Chair?
You're recognized, Michael.
I was half
Thank you.
joking, but I actually am also serious that I think that the public spaces remit is very broad.
That the public space what?
Public spaces remit is very broad and it should be expanded, and that there have been a lot of things in the last couple of years that should have come across this committee in a joint session or something else.
Okay.
That we should have had the ability to comment. So while I said that jokingly and hilariously at first,
I sit on both committees, so I just hear a lot of the.
Me too.
I know you do too,
and
yeah.
Empowering my chair, but so jokes aside, but I actually do think there's a weird crossover in a lot of these topics and we've seen this with like the things in front of Macy's and
Right.
like that is like, which one is it? Is it
Kind of
both?
between
It's
both.
kind of both.
May I ask, how, in the past, have there ever been like communities coming or committees coming together to say like, this presentation should be heard by both and
Yes.
like we should, okay.
Joint meetings are
Landmarks and build and land
Land use,
Sorry,
yeah.
overseas.
no, okay. So that is something that's been done in the past. Frequently it can be difficult to schedule to get quorum so that both committees are there. And sometimes it helps depending on like who from the executive committee or like the chair's opinion of like assigning different.
Thinking about
roles.
like, Teeny got a presentation not too long ago from
Yeah.
this group that was obviously it's like the beginning stages of many years, let alone anything else down the road, but perhaps when those larger groups come together for, even if it's going to be
a big presentation. Yeah.
Right. Like I would think that this group should be involved in
things that involve trees, plants, open plazas.
Yeah,
where
and I
people
think
can
that
sit
like
and-
the consideration, like that conversation yielded a very heavy, as it understandably may, bike conversation. But then there's a lot of other things that this committee might find a forward thinking.
Yeah, looking at the way that the Broadway, like the reverse street, which was a teeny item, but like that is a huge thoroughfare for people walking.
Correct.
And
What
all the
reverse
plazas there.
street?
So the street, it's the north part of Union Square. It's right in front of Paragon Sports. That street is fully closed now. It's just like fully plaza. And then just north of that, they reversed the direction of that street as opposed to just being one way.
For automobiles.
Broadway, as opposed to just coming south. That goes north, which is access for that fire department, and then the cars coming south then like get diverted and have to turn. And there was a little bit of a learning curve for some of the drivers because it is a slow street with where the plazas are. And that like two-way bike lane, which was also a hot topic on the P&E committee.
I mean, mention a bike.
Yeah, look sideways at a bike, think about a bike. But I do feel that as far as street trees and T&E, Samir's been great about wanting to be active and get some of the district needs statement stuff, like, which is another thing for us to think about when we think about these issues. Is that's one of our biggest agreements from the city is the district needs statement and sort of what the order of priorities are. And like, do we want to add a statement of, hey, we want more street trees, we want more money, right? So in reaching out to sort of like the open street, like little groups, like what would help them, and maybe they need resources or assistance, and sort of like checking in on some of that stuff. And then also more broadly, like the linear park is definitely going to be a task force that is sort of in development as far as a proposal. So if you want to join that, get it on the ground floor. I definitely strongly recommend that. Todd.
Yes, so I'm just listening to all of this and having been around the block a few times and been on several task forces. So our job as the Parks Committee is to try to have the accumulated experience and philosophy such as it is, and make sure that we have our say. You know, each of our committees has its own set of expertise, and you know, our committee is more the big picture committee. So unfortunately in New York City, in most times, you know, all of these, like if you take the Broadway project, or you look at Broadway or the conservancies or the Department of Transportation, all of them, they're like their own little fiefdoms, and all of them have control over various pieces of what could be fantastic parks if all of these places, I'm just talking about even our district, if they could all get their acts together and, you know, think as an integrated whole. So take, for example, I mentioned the public plazas in front of the Flatiron Building. That's controlled by the Flatiron bid, right? If you go down another few blocks, it's controlled by the Department of Transportation. Another one of them is controlled by, So the point is, our job, if we have a task force, right, is we have to say, you know what? It's like all of these different groups and fiefdoms in city government and public-private partnerships. We have to say to them, you know what, guys, this is, you should all be working together. You know, what we see is, you know, a consistent park that spans all of these groups, and we want to see all of these groups working together, right? And, you know, the other committees, some of them may have less interest, or they may philosophically feel that we shouldn't even be taking a role. So, you know, there's a lot of new people. There are a lot of new people who have come onto the committee, and you know, these are things that we have to work out among ourselves, and then persuade our fellow committee members.
Yeah, I think that some of that type of detailed conversation will definitely happen within that task force. So let me know, let's loop me in on an email, and we can loop everyone in with Zool for that, for some of those ideas. And I think definitely bringing it back to this committee is something that we're into. Catherine.
Yeah, thank you, Libby. I just wanted to say that I guess my observations lead me to say that I think we should more deeply focus on the parks that we work with in helping them to establish better engagement. A lot of the applications we receive are very last minute, and we don't have a lot of time to make comment. And so I would like to see a more robust relationship, especially when parks know that they're having 4 activations. After they meet with the board, they could send us early notifications. They don't have to have everything ironed out so that we can anticipate. I would also echo what Todd was saying, is that I do notice that a lot of the bids are helping to manage public spaces that are in high pedestrian areas. For example, I think of One Penn Plaza is now part of 34th Street Partnership. They opened up a new plaza with the opening of Moynihan Train Hall and the finishing of Penn Station, one part. And this is a good example where one part of the project is in one district and another part is in another, that we do those collaborative efforts, and that we just do we really should do some fine tuning in terms of open streets. I celebrate open streets because I think it's very well planned. I think there could always be more. I think it's very well staffed. I think that if DOT has need of us, they should tell us, because we don't necessarily need to create work, but we are here for, improving and making it better. If there's some kind of engagement we can do in the part of open streets that runs through CB5, I think, sure. But I also think that understanding more about the growing number of public plazas as new construction is going up and things are changing all around us, that really being able to get also a handle on public spaces that we don't think of, that are parks, that are to do some more work there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I think that is a nice segue for something that I definitely want to take more offline, and there are other members of the board that are very interested. But I've been, prior to taking over as interim chair, and stepping in as that, I've been very interested in pursuing the parks that we already have, like you said, Catherine. So just really piggybacking, love where your head is at with that. I'm very curious about the privately owned public spaces and the POPs that we have. Because they are public spaces. And so some of the bathroom task force has gone through and seen hey, is this being enforced? Are the bathrooms accessible? But there are other elements of those public spaces. And so some of that sits within land use because of the zoning change. But just as far as a first step of creating a task force. So that is in development. I'm very much interested in what everyone says. Please contact me. You can offline a little bit more about it. But very much diving into the spaces that we have. And one of the biggest problems, if you saw a wonderful New York Times piece from 2 years ago, that when you get a zoning sort of gift in exchange for additional floor space, you get a public plaza that is a public space for people's enjoyment. But sometimes those spaces become things like lumber yards, and they are locked, and there really is no enforcement mechanism. And some of that's changed over time, but isn't. But so there is an existing sort of census survey. It's a little bit outdated as far as it's not up to date with what exists. It was done by one of the previous associates from the board office. But so that is a piece of sort of checking in to see what is the status on some of these things and making some recommendations. So definitely more to come on that. But Michael, do you want to follow up with that on that thought?
No, I wasn't, but.
We can circle back to a separate thought if you have one.
I mean, the
in a
thought
minute,
is that
but-
there's, it's all publicly owned. I mean, you can't actually own land in the United States, so it's
Okay.
it just needs enforcement.
I'm going to call on John Harris, and then I will go to you, Charles. John.
Yes,
What are
I'd like to bring up a slightly different topic. It's been my experience in leadership positions, management positions, that to help develop appropriate policies, one needs to have access to metrics and statistics. And I'm not suggesting that I'm proposing that maybe we come up with maybe 10 or 20 data points that are most important to us as a committee. I'm not talking about thousands of data points because we'll just get lost in the forest. But some key ones, I'm not even sure what they would be, we would have to, as a committee, agree on what those would be, and we would follow them religiously month to month. It could be incidents, it could be the number of events in our district, it could be the number of trees, it could be a number of issues, but those that we think are the most important ones, that when we see green, we know it's good. When we see yellow, it's something we need to potentially focus on. If it's a red metric, we need to put that at the top of our list of things to do.
I think that's a really interesting idea, and definitely something that I think we can come up with a lot of like different ideas of how to engage that. I love that it's a way to measure sort of like get a holistic picture of what parks and public spaces looks like. So it's not just hearing stuff, it's more of a bird's eye view, like a top level view from like all of the stuff reporting in. And you're right, a lot of the data that we get is very disparate. And as Catherine had mentioned, a lot of the applications we get will be sort of last minute, even if they know things are kind of coming down the pike. So sort of enhancing some of that stuff. But I like the data piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, one of those metrics I just thought about that could be the compliance level of various parks, for instance, on how far in advance do they submit the applications, how well they're done, etc., and so forth. But anyway, I have no preconceived notion of what these core metrics should be. That would be a committee decision. But it's just been my experience that's an effective tool when one is involved in governance and leadership matters.
Yeah, I think that's great. I also, it goes to what Todd was talking about getting different groups that are all doing their own thing to sort of like cohesively agree. It's sort of, we can be the glue between some of that for our district, which I love. And I think maybe we can all, how do people feel about brainstorming a little bit? And maybe I can coming in with some and like setting up a Google form that we can kind of continue to think about that, and sort of like take some time to reflect on it a little bit offline too. As we think about sort of moving into these public plazas and as we move throughout our district, like jot down some notes in your notes app maybe. But yeah. Okay, Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was thinking about if it's possible we can include trying to improve access for people with disabilities, not just visual disabilities, to these open streets, but I'm thinking of the Times Square Alliance, what a great job they've done to really improve their events to be accessible. I mean, when it was the New Year's Eve ball drop, they even had a sensory bus for people who have sensory disabilities and need to have a quiet space and all that. You know, how do we implement that in an open street kind of situation where it can be overwhelming? There's a lot of people. It can be very hectic. It can be very crowded. And sometimes it can be a situation where people are very close to each other and moving quite slowly. And it can be very overwhelming. And for people with sight disabilities, navigating that space or even getting assistance can be difficult with these open street festivals and plazas, which makes it like a no-go area for certain people with disabilities. So I think we need to think more about if possible to include how to be more inclusive. And I think what a great job the Times Square Alliance is doing. I'm really hoping maybe we can encourage others to learn from them. They even have a inclusivity committee. So, it'd be great if some of these other bids would start thinking more about that, like the Times Square Alliance is doing. And so I just wanted to say what a great job Tom Harris, the president of Times Square Alliance, is doing with all the good work and thinking about how to really have events, really truly accessible, not just, the bare minimum, but really going above and beyond to really include all types of disabilities.
Yeah, I totally.
Thank
I
you.
very much hear you on that, Charles. I know you've been very vocal about how much you appreciate the Times Square Alliance. And that is something maybe that we can talk and connect with some of our bid reps for from our committee to bring up with when they go to those meetings and,
I appreciate
well,
that.
for ones that aren't the Times Square Alliance, to, how they're thinking about it. And I definitely hear you on, making sure that we're all thinking about sort of inclusivity and what accessibility means in a more outside the box, way for some people who don't really traditionally think of it in certain terms, that is a great way to broaden our horizons for how we're thinking about it, to make things truly accessible to everyone, and sort of what that actually means. Are there any ideas or passion projects from anyone else? Yeah, Michael, give it.
I was just having thank you. I was just having a thought, that the congestion pricing has just put an exclamation point on what we've seen happening in the city in Midtown. In our Community Board 5 middle spine along Fifth Avenue and along Broadway, where just a couple of weeks ago they closed down Fifth Avenue on a Sunday, I think, for a Fifth Avenue 200th anniversary. It might have been from when they first paved it, I'm not sure. And the Broadway Plaza, which keeps shunting more and more pedestrians and less automobiles, to the exclusion in a lot of locations of no cars on Broadway at all. And we've started to really Robert Moses's automobiles priorities with pedestrian priorities, to see how we are now favoring people over cars. I think it's amazing to just watch it happen. And this congestion pricing, to me, is just boom, putting an exclamation point on the whole system. And I'm curious as to anybody having any thoughts. Is it going to end, or is it going to keep on to be a completely mass transit type city where somehow we'll figure out a way to get deliveries on mass transit as well, or middle of the night? Just putting all of that together, and it just seems to be a linear type of a thing. Sorry for talking so much.
Thank you.
This is Catherine.
Catherine, yes.
I just wanted to say that's such a futuristic, we have the opportunity to have such a futuristic view, and I could feel that it just is, I think about how much more of the city will go underground when I think of Grand Central Madison and how close it is to Rockefeller Center, how close Penn Station is to, what's that place called? Port Authority. You know, that some of this stuff like Toronto could be underground, that there could be different pathways. Will we be a carless city? I had to just put that in there. Will we be a carless city? Or what do you call those the driverless city, the cars that don't have drivers, like some, you know, will we be testing that out soon? But we'll get the ingenuity and creativity is what makes New York City what it is. And so thank you, Libby, for opening up space to talk about some of this tonight.
Yeah, no, I very much appreciate that. I like the blue sky thinking, and some of it veers into that like transportation. But as soon as things are covered and it's a park, we can put in more plants and trees, and we are
we're public spaces too. So that's what we're talking about. Streets are public spaces. So you know, what will the public space, how will we move? I'm like, we're building all this stuff, and we never build like those things that help people walk, that move while you're walking, all kinds of things. But in any case, again, thank you for opening up futuristic space.
Very much. Thank you for coming with your ideas for how we can all contribute. Tom?
I remember like, it's kind of a while ago, like 20 years ago, there used to be a lot more like live music and stuff, like events like that in the parks. Like I remember in 2002 or 3, like I went and saw like the White Stripes in Union Square, and there was a lot more like,
wow.
I know it sounds weird, but there used to be like something like Madison Square Park would have like a small indie band play, or well, there were the White Stripes, they had the Counting Crows and like Battery Park City, like, you know, some of it was like post 9/11, like people like rah-rahing around the city. But like I remember it just was, there was more kind of music and like live activities kind of in the parks. And like even if it was just like small performers, like there used to be like circles too. I know it's still somewhat in the subway. Like I saw it in Grand Central. It's kind of what made me think of it. There used to be circles where like performers that lived in the city could come in. They could register time to go and
Yeah.
perform. And I just like I saw it in Grand Central and I hadn't seen it in so long, and it kind of made me remember back to like geez, when I was in college, I went to NYU. Like I saw the White Stripes in Union Square, and it was back when Union Square wasn't as defined as like a public space as well, where it had that weird kind of back lot where like 17th wasn't blocked off the way it is today. So it was actually more difficult, I would imagine, to actually have the concert, like, but they blocked it off and there was like a big concert there, or, you know, even in these public plazas, when you're talking about that space, like, that'd be cool to have like a band or a performance or something. I know they sometimes do stuff, like, they've been doing a lot of like pop-ups and installations, east of, Madison Square Park, like at that little triangle, like there was like a Versace thing, but I mean, I'm sure it's cool and stuff like that, but the live performances and music, I kind of remember it, and it just seems like it's gone away, even if it's just like someone playing a violin or something like that, like, and there were like dedicated spaces for it, and people would sign up, and I don't know what happened.
Can I rebut that?
Michael Kback, yes.
I am like a retired guy and I'm all over the city on a daily basis. And I would like to educate you, if I may, to what's available in New York City that you obviously aren't that familiar with. For example, in the summertime, every single day, every day at 12:30 to 2:30, from Mondays to Friday, not on the weekends, there is a pianist on the Bryant Park Promenade between the two restaurants up there every single day. And at the same time that that's going on, 3 days a week, either in front of Penn Station on 8th Avenue or across the street in front of the post office, Terry Waldo's Gotham City Band performs marvelous music. Great, not the famous name, but you go there and you're throwing money in the pushka there like everybody else. Great. Not only that, if you were to take a ferry to Staten Island and wait for a ferry every day, there's some talented musicians that have a big banner sanctioned by the city of New York to perform in front in Times Square, on the Times Square station, when you, I can't describe exactly where it is, but it's where you get where you can get the shuttle. So you're on the east side. There is another performance space where people are performing there. These are all going on a daily basis. So when you say something that you don't think that there is a lot of stuff, I'm saying, give me your email and I will give you on a daily basis, especially in the warm weather, just what's going on a daily basis if you're available to go, like I am, retired old guy.
No,
I just for a moment, just direct to the chair for a second. Michael, I hear what you're saying, and thank you for that review of some of the fabulous things that you were very much. No, it's totally. I did just want to agree with you about the some of there is like the busking stuff, but I think what Tom was also saying was sort of ways to activate. What I'm hearing from you is that ways to activate in spaces that maybe aren't managed by bids or aren't intentionally bringing in some of the events that you were talking about, or things that are from the more established groups and that have like established resources. And this is maybe with some of those smaller groups that we were talking about, of checking in with, because the way the process works for like a small open street where you close it off is that's really managed by like a handful of people on like a Saturday or like Saturday, Sunday. Like it's not the same sort of level of like the 200th birthday party where you have every city official there and all of Fifth Avenue is closed, or even just in Bryant Park every day. Though I love the idea of maybe having a specific committee-based tour with you on some of this stuff. But to Tom, is that a little bit of what you're thinking of here, ways to activate some of those different spaces?
I know there's a lot, there's a lot. It's a big city.
Okay.
and maybe it's just me, I just remember like 20 years ago, it was just more prevalent. Everything you're saying is, I remember the piano in Bryant Park when I worked over there.
Yeah.
But I remember it just being, and maybe I'm wrong.
And maybe something, but maybe something to look into more. And sort of some of that balancing, but Michael Southworth, you seem to have a comment on this
Yeah,
very
so,
topic.
I mean, two things. One, I wanted to go, really what I was commenting on was I wanted to go back to what Catherine was saying. And that like, you can go back to like Isaac Asimov novels, the Caves of Steel, that have all sorts of really cool public transportation models that she was alluding to with like slideways and things like that. But the reason I went down that direction was to encourage that, like, public spaces, to me, it includes the sidewalk. If we start treating the sidewalk as not part of transportation, but as part of the public space and the public realm, then we get closer to that vision or desire of a more people friendly city. And that's something that we can aspire to, and I think we should engage on that as a committee. So the back and forth here with that is, the other thing I have to say is like, I have zero interest in there being music at parks. My girlfriend lives on Washington Square Park, and I want that thing to be quiet. So, look, and I know there are gonna be people that disagree with me vehemently in the opposite direction, and that's fine. We live in New York. I would live somewhere else if I didn't put up with it, but I just didn't want to, like, I mean, 20 years ago, there was CMJ and the White Stripes could play there because they weren't the White Stripes. So I just did want to bring that up, that like, we have heard numerous complaints from people at that corner of Union Square Park that have issues with bongo drums constantly. And so like, that's something we do need to take into account, like.
What I'm hearing from you is a balanced perspective, but also an activation of space perspective, which is definitely something that this committee can perhaps take up going forward as we discuss some of these spaces going forward.
An expansion of the realm.
And yes, to your, or just an acknowledgement of the realm that already exists. But I will say on that first point about the sidewalks, traditionally for CB5, the sidewalks, as Michael K. has also has known and has alerted us to some of the sidewalk things that have gone on that are like obstructions. Sidewalks do tend to fall in this committee traditionally too, but like as that sidewalk expands, would also
It's
like fall to us.
Sorry
But-
to crosstalk, but the bus stations seem to fall in transportation, but everything else falls here.
Depending, and sometimes with queuing, if it's a bar, that will fall under SLAP, right? It sort of depends on what the precipitating or prompting event is in certain ways. I'm gonna go to Charles. And then I would love to hear from people who we haven't heard from yet.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering if there's any way we could also look at the process of street seating where, there is a program in the city where they, you can have, if there's space in front of your building, and if you think, for example, it would make a lot better for residents of the building to have like a seating area in like maybe, like in the area where traditionally there would be parking or something like that. But the process is very arbitrary, and I'm just wondering if there's a way we can also look into that, making it a lot easier for residents who are very passionate about street seating and that sort of thing.
I will admit I don't know as much about that process, but I definitely I love that idea as far as making sort of pocket parks and expanding places for people to enjoy being outside. Very much so. That is a wonderful idea, Charles. Thank you. We will definitely follow up with that. And I'd love to offline about that too. Is there anyone else who I maybe haven't heard from yet on this topic? Isabel, Myrtle, Annie? Pull you into the conversation a little bit?
I was just gonna bring up restrooms and see if there's another mechanism by which we can see if we can increase the number of restrooms in the city as opposed to just, either depending on pops or depending on the city to create them.
Isn't there an app that tells you like?
That's what I
Yeah,
mean now,
there's an app.
It's just not enough.
And then our
Right.
very own Julie Chu has done like the most incredible
Yeah.
work on this, in a way that is like awesome. But yeah, I definitely think that maybe one of our things to look at, and John, going back to John Harris's idea of like what to track, is if we have reports of people who haven't been able to access a restroom, or because they had a stroller or a kid, or the guard said, hey, you're in this POPs, which would maybe fall a little bit under some of like my idea for like the POPs sort of follow-up,
Right.
and then enforcement mechanisms.
Yeah, I think to the tracking idea, John, which I love, but I think that could also tying into what Catherine's suggestion is of getting greater anticipation of. I'm assuming that a lot of the installations come annually from groups, like there's an expectation from some, or are they just all random?
Right.
Like, is there an anticipation that like in the first quarter, like the
We're gonna
Lego
have-
team,
we're
they're
gonna
doing
have a
one
certain
in
number.
number, or like that's
So-
just, it feels sporadic always.
There was a period of time where they weren't able to fill, like 3 years ago, they weren't able to get
Gotcha.
all of them because of a renovation.
Okay,
And so I think my hypothesis is that some of the normal sort of course of the timing of stuff, as far as like notifying us so that we can actually kind of a little bit thrown out of whack, and in sort of deference to the events being scaled down enough. And we wanted to make sure that they were able to meet some of their budget stuff, and in alignment with that, we were a little bit more lenient as far as like that notification period, but like that's
Okay.
definitely something that we were working on.
But
and-
they will take as many as they can.
sure.
They're not, so it depends on the arrangement that that particular bid or conservancy has with the city.
Okay.
What are
Um,
we talking about here?
and,
Activation.
the activations that are like that, like, so for example, Madison Square Park, which we heard tonight, the Lego event, which is one of their 4, like it's one of their 4, like activations. They get 4 fundraising events and 4 activations.
Okay.
And so like that is what their agreement says. The Flatiron bid has a different agreement with the city. So
Bryant
it's,
Park can do whatever we want.
But say it
yeah,
again?
and Bryant Park can kind of do whatever they
Their own
want.
country.
Well, with it,
Including like the city.
we will
Let me
bring.
say this about, can I just say this?
But like, we
So
don't,
the
we don't.
question
It's
is,
not
yes,
that simple. Bryant Park operates in the green where the city struggles with park spaces, Tavern on the Green, whether you're over there by Hudson River, they can never open a restaurant over there. Trying to get parks to be solvent is no easy task. And so what looks like a walk in the park at Bryant Park, they've worked hard to become a civil park. I think they've used their neighbors wisely, and we want them to cross-connect their strengths in other places. Like Madison Square Park has a new set of neighbors that they need to tap into. That's another example of the business of private and public partnerships that we might be able to help with engagement if we were a little earlier in the process.
yeah, no, I definitely hear you. I think some of that is there's been some turnover with some of those bids and parks too. So making sure that we're all a little bit on the same page, and when things come over the transom, or making sure that things, as far as like when the cycle falls, how early we hear it. So it's not just coming to us, that the full board can actually comment too. But I really hear what you're saying, Catherine, and I love how engaging of the community and the neighbors. You are so much an advocate for engaging the community and neighbors on stuff that I love to hear you say that too.
So do we
on that.
think, sorry.
Yep, Annie.
Do we think that a first step here is then reaching out to all of these groups? I mean, this is a wide swath of different organizations.
A lot of those activations tend to fall within some of the bids and parks, but that is some of the stuff that the office, and I've been working on, and
Okay.
meeting with some of them too. But I also think that maybe setting up a little bit more of a standard, disclaimer might be a way for us to try to
And
get things.
And I just want to, let me, if I can say, I just
Yeah.
also want to say some of it's easier. Some of it's as simple as putting the question in the application. Have you engaged with? And putting that with the applicant so that the park in itself is, that they're taking on neighbors. I think of 34th Street Partnership is great at this when they have activations and they need to let the businesses know, the businesses sign off on whether or not they agree. And so we We haven't seen that in a while in a few rounds, but some of this kind of engagement can be built into the application process, so it doesn't become, we have a very small staff in the office, and we can very easily overwhelm our process. So any place we can, do something easy to make scale happen, metrics, any of it is great.
Yeah, I love all of that. And that does bring up something that Todd and I have offlined about a little bit, about maybe revisiting our questionnaire and making sure that our applicants, and especially our partners, like with those bids, know to sort of, as they lead their own applicants and their own sort of like activations and marketers through the process, that they know to have a statement about what their image policy is. And I think, Catherine, adding a question about that would be great. And I think that like revisiting the questionnaire is also something for us to maybe consider and continue to offline about. Isabel?
Yeah, I think revisiting the questionnaire would be great, especially along the lines of kind of consistent issues. And then the other thing is just in terms of thinking about kind of how we evaluate different activations. I mean, we do have the matrix. I think that could maybe be updated. I think that there are a couple of things on there that we don't really consider, or that are not particularly relevant to kind of how we currently think about what activations to approve.
Yeah, I definitely think that is something that maybe those two things can kind of go together, as far as like how we consistently look at stuff. And to John's point of like being consistent on sort of like what our high level factors are, and then also like with our known problems at various points in time, those consistent issues that kind of consistently come up for us. Michael, did you have something you wanted to add?
I mean, I was gonna say just that we kid because we love. I can't imagine us making like jest. I mean, it's very serious, the fires, but like, this is the most responsibly well run. But
I can't hear, I gotta read here.
Oh, the Bryant Park, yes.
Like,
Singing the praises of Bryant Park.
I mean, we can only joke about it because they're very, very well run. It's unfortunate, but like.
In a very professional,
Like,
very professional on top of it.
Hope that,
Yes.
that we would have that type of involvement and contribution from every part.
Yeah, and that's also some of how can we help sort of distribute some of that knowledge and help different parks that maybe like can cross-pollinate some ideas and advocate for that, and advocate on behalf of our constituents too.
Seconding what Catherine was saying.
Yeah.
To engage.
And engaging the community, as far as, again, going back to Tom's point about the balance between wanting more activations and music, but also making sure that as our constituents become more residential with some of the rezoning, that we really keep in mind everyone's sort of needs. This committee and this board is very much about the balance between everyone's interests. And so some of these I will follow up with, and we can offline more about and bring more ideas, and very much coming back to the fires to think about for the next meeting, talking about that in a little bit more depth, and like who's coming, and then we'll follow up again with Paul. But if anyone has any additional last thoughts to ideate on and begin to marinate more, but this is an introductory conversation. It doesn't end here. It is just an opening. So, that's limit, but yeah.
I just remembered 3 more free musical events on a regular basis. One is in front of Grand Central Terminal, right under the overpass.
Oh.
There's a guy always there every single day, and he plays music to the accompaniment of a loudspeaker. He must be allowed to do it. He's damn good. And he's
He's the
playing.
guy I saw.
Yeah,
That was what reminded me. I was going through Grand Central.
But is it on weekdays only, or are weekends included as well?
When I'm there, and I'm not there on a regular basis, I'm there at assorted times. He's there 50% of the time. So put that. Also on Vanderbilt Avenue, right across the way from that, where there's no cars, between 41st and 42nd Street. There's like, the restaurant has outdoor seating there, and the building I'm talking about, they used to sell cigarettes there. It used to be Philip Morris building, and then it was an A something building who took over Philip Morris. and it's got an open plaza inside the building. And outside the building, there's a 4-piece band, louder than hell. I'm not crazy about the music.
Square.
That's just another one. Also, in the garment district, every Tuesday, they put up a tent and they got rock and roll guys there. You could go there and you'd be like, seeing a group that 10 years from now, you'd be talking about that group that I never heard of, White something or other, who is now playing over there. This is all free, always going on. And how you're missing that is a shud. You know what a shud means? A shanda. You know what that means, that word? Ricardo, I doubt it.
Michael.
All right, never mind. But you stay in touch with me
Okay.
and you tell me you want stuff and I'll help you out.
Okay, bringing the committee back to order and focus.
Sorry.
I appreciate everyone coming in with all of your really exciting ideas, and I think that we got everyone to contribute some of this. But again, it is just the kickoff to more. And if anyone has anything else to add, otherwise I will go to new business.
That was new business.
That was an agenda item specifically ideating on the future of parks as new.
Let me see if I have a tour coming up.
And
I've got something for your business.
okay, Michael Southworth, new business item.
It's only if people want to be involved in the conversation with TNE next month about licensing e-bikes.
All right, so we've got licensing.
It's just if people
I saw that,
It's gonna
yeah.
be spicy.
want to give up 3 hours of their evenings.
Begin some of that cross committee collaboration on.
Do it again at the full board.
Yeah, dive into the
Just
deep
for
end with
just
that
for
one.
A question on that. Is
feedback,
there a
yes.
difference between an e-bike with a detachable
Yes.
battery and the kind that you can pay and use on your corner that's sponsored by the
The
city
Citi Bike?
something or other city? What's the name of
Citi
it?
Bike.
City Bike? There's a difference. One of them needs to have licensing and the other one not, or both, or what's?
I think
That is
that's right, yeah.
a great question to
I
maybe
mean, I almost
offline
got-
with some of our members of the transportation committee, and also to then maybe you can
There's like
attend a fourth committee.
4 wheels good, 2 wheels bad.
Okay, and with that. If there is anyone else who would like,
No business.
okay, new business, Michael K. Back.
As
in addition.
luck would have it, tomorrow, in a freezing cold day, I'm gonna have a tour of the garment district free. Free tour, 10:30 in front of the large red yellow button. Is anybody who doesn't know where that yellow button is, shouldn't be on this committee. Because it's right in the middle of our area. You all know where it is? Yellow button, 39th Street, 7th Avenue, okay? 10:30 tomorrow morning, free tour, and if you don't enjoy yourself at the end of the tour, I will give you double your money back.
Do you ever do weekend tours?
I did one on Sunday, Flatiron District tour. Also in our area,
Also our area.
also freezing cold. Oy vey.
All right, fabulous. So is anyone else, it's a fun coming, I adore you guys. Okay, so please continue to ideate on some of these blue sky ideas.
Please.
Also think about, I will open up that Google form to follow up on some of those like data points and some of these points to follow up with, connecting with Zool on this linear park thing and maybe some spinoffs for starters. Yeah, there's any additional new business?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I again, it's like Michael K. does do a fantastic tour.
Believe it.
All right, there is a member of the public. All right, hold on for just a moment. I will open up some questions for a member of the public. I think Emily Miller, would you like to speak
It's gone.
with any item before our committee or not before our committee tonight on tonight's agenda?
Yeah,
She
it's
needs to
gone.
be promoted?
Emily, can you hear us? Do you have any more questions? Yes, great. All right, Emily, please introduce yourself, your connection to,
She's muted.
connection to the district and
okay.
what you would like to speak about.
Okay, I am Emily Miller. I am a community leader for New York City, living at Upper West Side for 30 years and the Garment District for the last couple of years. And basically, I've been advocate public safety since 1994, and along with a lot of other things, whether judicial or non-judicial. And recently, I am very upset with some of the street sanitation and issues. And I have discovered that we tried to call sanitation department to pick up garbage in the public area and multiple times and nobody pick up. We don't know how to resolve this issue. If you could shed some light on it, I'll be really appreciative.
Great. Thank you, Emily, for your comment. I will definitely say to please reach out to our district office. That is office@cb5.org. Is that the right email? I believe it's, yeah. You can go to our website and reach out about that. And the office will definitely connect you with how to best address and direct those concerns. Thank you. Thank you for coming to our meeting. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Comments, questions, concerns?
Did I mention about the tour tomorrow?
You mentioned about the tour tomorrow. All right. Seeing none, thank you all for coming. And that concludes the regularly scheduled meeting of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee of CB5. See you all next week and at our next meeting on January 27th, where we will once again have a very packed agenda. We will potentially be hearing about the Bryant Park restaurant space, depending on whether that lease and where that lease is moving forward, as well as some of the fire things. And we're also scheduling some stuff with Central Park, but keep those ideas and concepts of space flowing. Stay warm, everybody.
Mohit?
All right, good night.
Myrtle?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. Oh, have you heard of this company?